It is Monday, somewhere in the world, at least here. And we are going to talk about startup like we do every single week. And as we do every single week, I am going to very specifically focus on the only thing that matters, which is early stage startups and how do you grow. And I'm going to take stuff that worked really well from last week and directly integrate it into your life today. That's what I be doing. And we may have an epic guest on the show, and we may not have an epic guest on the show. But what I promise you every single week is that by the time you leave this 30 to 45 minutes, you will have something very insightful to incorporate into your business. And even though that I, Brian Mac Mahon at Expert Dojo, am purely and simply an investor, most of what you're going to take from the call is going to be based on growth. It's going to be based on growth hacking. And it's going to be based on a very specific type of growth hacking that very few marketing specialists know how to do. It is early stage startup growth hacking because it's totally different. Because look, late stage growth hacking is what it is. It's all about size. If you have a lot of it, you're going to win. If you don't have a lot of it, you're not going to have enough money to play the game. That's just simple. If you ask any marketing specialist in the world, they're going to tell you the same thing. Have $500,000, you're going to do great on paid social media. Have $5, you're wasting your money on social media. Have $50, you're wasting your money on social media. Have $5,000, you're wasting your money and time on social media. So as an early stage startup, if you're sitting there and you're saying, okay, Brian, hang on a second. You're a venture capitalist, which means I need to get to 30K a month, and then I need to do 200% growth every single year from there on in. But you're telling me that the amount of money that I have to spend on marketing is not enough for me to be able to do that. Well, how do I make it? Well, there you go. You just found out why 99.99999% of all startups fail, because they all go down the same path. They spend 70% of their time looking for investor money, which isn't going to come in until they're in a really good position. Then after that, I'm coming in heavy today. I'm coming in heavy today because I'm coming off the back of like a really good event that I've got really great content to share with you on. And so, yes, it's really hard. Aaron, I'm glad you found us. We're going to work on that in the future. So okay, let me go into it again. Early stage startup, very hard. Marketing generally doesn't work for early stage companies. How do you go about overcoming the fact that your marketing dollars are not going to enable you to be able to get through and actually be successful? Well, you got to look at it differently. So today, I want to share my experience of Consensus last week, which is one of the biggest crypto conferences in the world, and our Web3 conferences, whichever way you want to have a look at it. And it is based in Austin, in Texas. So I had the pleasure of going down to Texas. Now, this thing was so wonderful because I got to test out something. I got to test out something and I got to see something, right? The thing I got to test out was my thesis on if you want to go from lovable product to absolutely dominating your industry, which is to become to a Horizon 3 product, which is something the world has never seen, something that is going to change the world, then you have to go through this whole snake through of building your domain awareness through your podcasts and your webinars and your turning up places and your meeting people and your outreaching on LinkedIn and your partnerships and your affiliates and whatever else you can think of, right? And then that snakes you through slowly to domain dominance. I in my background in Expert Dojo, I just pick a fight with everyone. And I pick a fight with everyone to start a conversation that's worth having. So I was on a panel the other day with one of the largest accelerators in the world, and I just explained to them, oh, I'm glad you asked that, Aaron. I'm going to come back to that in a moment. I was on a panel with one of the largest accelerators in the world, and I said, I believe that accelerators don't work anymore. I believe accelerators are an entire waste of time and money. And that led us into a conversation worth having. And the more conversations that you have, which are worth having, and they are really deep, proper conversations, not this superficial BS that most people have. Do you like my product? Yes, I like my product. Oh, thank you very much. I really appreciate your business. No, that doesn't count. You have to dig into the transformative change you're having with their product. You have to dig into the real conversations about what kind of a great partner you are you are not. Or you have to dig into the conversations about what can evolve your industry, in our case, in the place of accelerators, right? And that led to a conversation of really digging into something that helped me add an extra piece of information to my information tree that takes me to a place of domain expertise. That is where you all want to go to. But that is only a stop on the journey to taking you to domain dominance. The only way you build a unicorn, your investors make money, you make money, your family gets a better house and a better car and a better dog, is by hitting domain dominance. You can't do it any other way. And yes, on some levels, it's extreme aggression, but it's a very calculated path you're taking. So, this is my thesis. This is how I believe that companies can build incredible unicorns, incredible companies, and can defend the territory around them, not just by having great technology. So, how do you do that? Okay, first of all, I want to answer a question of Aaron's, which is, what does Horizon 3 product means? Horizon 3 product is when you achieve an epic insight. That epic insight is something that has never been discovered before. It was like Apple's Horizon 3 was not the early beautiful computers they made. Anybody who's old enough like me, you'll remember the days when you had your Dells and you had your Microsofts and you had all your normal things. And then you had these beautiful contraptions, what I call lovable products, something that you can see that was built with absolute dedicated love. But it wasn't a Horizon 3 product. It was a computer. It was a prettier computer. It was a nicer computer that had better access to design if you were a design person. But for most normal people in the world, it was not a Horizon 3 product. Now, that allowed them to learn what their customers really thought, to be able to build on top of that product. iPod came afterwards, right? But the iPod, to Aaron's point, was still another beautiful, lovable product. Their Horizon 3 was neither of those, because neither of those was going to dominate the industry. What their beautiful product was, which changed the world, was the marketplace. They literally have held the entire world to ransom. They can do anything they want to do on the marketplace, which is everything inside my iPhone. I literally can't do a single thing without Apple giving me permission. And I represent pretty much 50% of the world. They literally have 50% of the world held to ransom. And that will probably last 20 or 30 years. That's a Horizon 3. Some companies get there quicker, by the way. I would argue Uber hit their Horizon 3 much quicker. But again, the Horizon 3 was not the car sharing. The Horizon 3 is everything that the car sharing, or sorry, the shared rides, was anything that, like a marketplace for rides, was going to take them to in the future. Anyway, there's tons of examples of this, but you get it. You can't get your Horizon 3 until you get your lovable product. You have to get that. And getting from your lovable product to your Horizon 3 insists on you building domain dominance. It insists on you getting to know your customers so well that you know their deepest, darkest, filthiest secrets, because otherwise you're not going to make it. Okay, so back to the specific example, right? So last week, we are, I would argue, we have hit domain dominance in Web 2, right? We've gone from being an accelerator of no knowledge, no domain, no anything. 5 years ago, nobody heard of Expert Dojo. We had never invested in anything, to having invested in 300 companies, or just under, in Web 2. And I would argue one of the most prolific investors in the world, probably third most prolific investor as an accelerator in the world. Definitely last year we were top 10 on the planet, which is okay. But I would argue even more so is in the top 1% to 2% of all venture capitalists. So Yeah, I'm real proud of our companies. I think our thesis of growth first over pyramid schemes is working quite well and helping our founders. And even this morning, I was on with one of my founders about an amazing contract which we will facilitate, which will be $500,000 straight into their coffers from another one of our companies in our cohort that have referred one of their companies that has extra bandwidth for some more money that they need to spend. That's what we do. Growth for our companies. Growth first over everything. But the dominance thing is a beautiful thing. So we go to consensus. We know that we're pretty big now in Web 2. That didn't come by fluke. It didn't come by having lots of money. It came by pure hard work and a very dedicated team in Expert Dojo who wanted to win. But that doesn't make us big in Web3. Now, anybody who is watching and following Web3, you know that this is a very different world, right? Web3 is very fast. It is instant liquidity. There are many bad things in Web3, like there are many bad things in Web2, but there are beautiful things in Web2 and Web3 that I absolutely adore. I adore the decentralization that fits in Web3. I adore the revolution that is being started in Web3 against centralized power. I think it may be one of the largest transformative paradigm shifts of my entire existence. I believe AI just adds work for me, genuinely. Until they make an exact double of Brian, where I can really stay in bed in the morning, I just get more emails and more texts. But Web3, wow. We're entirely bypassing financial systems which have kept the world in slavery for the whole world. Now, look, there's some bad stuff too that we got to get past, but the thesis, the idea, everything behind it's really good. And I prefer to lean into that and try and focus on adding to the good rather than adding to the bad. So I decide Expert Dojo are going to lean into Web3. I decide Expert Dojo are going to go to consensus, but we are not going to go to consensus if I'm following my own thesis. We can't just go there and get a booth in consensus. That would be stupid, right? We can't just go there and walk around the conference and then see if everything works out well. That would be stupid. That wouldn't follow domain awareness to domain authority to domain domination. We got to do something different. So we picked one of our companies who we believed had a really good utility inside a token that they'd had out for a long time. We then work on that token to make sure that we build the token up and we get it really strong. And then we make sure that we create an epic production, because that's how you build domain dominance, right? And by the way, after this, I'm going to bring Brad in from Havana in about 5 or 10 minutes, who is an epic legend, one of the companies that we have in our portfolio and have done the same job on building domain awareness, domain authority, and all the way to domain domination. But I want to give you this little example first. So, Brad, I see you in there. Hang in there for me for a couple of minutes, and I'm going to pull you in. So we go to consensus, and we arrive there. But we arrived there in the knowledge that we had prepared beforehand. We know Web3 VCs, Web3 founders, they are spending money like it's no tomorrow. They are creating lavish events. It is almost impossible to compete with them. So we worked off the back of consensus. We put ourselves up as a side event. We created a comedy night where we brought out 4 or 5 comedians who were only there to laugh at people in crypto, because we knew that people in crypto absolutely love being laughed at while they're making money. And then at that event, we arranged a separate event. And that separate event was arranged by our company, GeoJam. And that event took 20 of the most important people at the original event, put them into a Mercedes Sprinter van, and took them off to a nightclub where Medusa were playing. Now, you may say, what the hell does Medusa have to do with Expert Dojo or anything else? Nothing, actually, except for the fact that it was a really good night. And the fact that GeoJam focus on experiences, highly unique experiences that you would never normally do in your life, that will take you to a place of absolute fun that you couldn't even imagine that you could do before. And so it was absolutely fantastic, honestly. And there was no, I'm trying to actually find a text here really quick, where maybe I can just I get you a little picture and I show you how fantastic the evening was, because it literally achieved all of our objectives. The investors who came to it said that this is, if you can see it, that's Medusa. That's one of my partners. That's me in the back. If you can see little old me in the back having a good time. And then a ton of investors there. And what happened was this: two things happened. Number one, we had at least 5 billionaires in that group of 20 people who are sitting in the back. Three of them said to me it was singularly the best night that they had ever had, which is kind of scary in itself. One of the other ones came in immediately and said, "Hey, I want to be an LP in your fund because I see exactly what you're doing." The company that we were doing this entire thing for, their token jumped for the first time, not because it was being hyped or pushed or pumped, but because their real product came out and was shown in its description. We then went to the largest fund in all of Web3, who asked if they could have an appointment to come around and see us the following week. They're going to come in on Tuesday. They didn't care about us before, but they care about us now. I had the entire week filled full of people who only wanted to meet me. Every other event opened up. Everybody wanted us to be there. And the deal flow that we started getting was unlike any other, as well as requests to be on panels and God knows what else. Now, I'm going to finish after Brad and I start having a wee chat. I'm going to come back afterwards and I'm going to talk to you about DNA. And I'm going to talk to you about what they did to create their domain dominance. And you all have to listen to me here. I swear to you, this I have no doubt about. If you try and play the game of VCs, which is that you come in, you take money, you spend it, and they see if your money is going to spend better than other people's money, and then they dump you if it does not, you are fucked. Like, period. You will lose. If you take the game yourself, you will win. And on that point, I am going to bring in Brad, legendary founder, good buddy, and I don't know, just epic entrepreneur, building in the most difficult category to build and absolutely outshining. And I'm going to share, as we chat and we talk and we go through everything he's built, I'm going to talk about how you can use human-centric design, beautifully gorgeous, attractive, incredible, human-centric design as a way to build that exact same domain dominance that I'm talking about in one single event. It is a different type of epic production, but an epic production all the same. And so, Brad, can I give a little introduction of how we met?
Go for it, yeah.
Yeah, because I'm on a roll today. You can tell. This is why I've definitely never done drugs. And like why I even try to ease up on the coffee a little bit, because this is me normal on a Monday morning. And you know this, right?
He runs hot. Absolutely.
Okay. So intro for Brad, right? So Brad and I first met when I get a phone call, and I think it was Brad or maybe it was Sophie. And they're like, "Hey, got a guy wants to do an event over in your place." And like, we have this really cool place in Santa Monica. And so we rent it out a ton of times so that we can pay for the rent and pay for some bagels in the middle and feel really smart about the fact that we have the best place in Santa Monica, which pays for itself, right? And so, but they're like, he's going to have a really dope party. And I hear that all the time and they never are. And so he comes around. And then I am normally here for the events because A, it's a good excuse to do some work, but B, I like to see what's happening and where they are and who's here. And so anyway, this guy comes in and he arrives, and then some people start flowing in. I think Brad texted me before and he said, "Hey, we might have 300-400 people." And I'm like, "Sure, there'll be like 30 people there." And then so he arrives in, he comes in, and then all these people start coming in. It was like Beverly Hills 90210, and everybody's like beautiful and more beautiful, and they're like cool and more cool, and they're all going like, "Brad, Brad, Brad." And I'm like, what the fuck? This is like insane. And then he's on top of the table and he's going like, "Havana, Final Bev, this is the future. These are the drinks." And they're going, "Brad, Brad, Brad." And then I went over to him and I'm like, "Dude, I really want to invest. Can we invest?" And he's going, "I don't really know if I want investment." And I'm like, "Now I definitely want to invest." And I'm pretty sure I made the investment offer that evening
Yep.
because I saw you knew the code. Like
Yep.
you knew the code, man. And that was how I first met you. And I've had nothing but admiration and respect ever since. And you're now killing it. And you're now doing another raise. Well, by the way, everybody else is dying in CPG. Everybody else with beverage brands, except for Brad, Liquid Death, and a handful of others are dying. And that is because there is only two groups of people in this space. Those people who are trying their ass off every single day, and it's so hard, and those people who are working it out.
Yeah, I think, one thing, Brian, I heard you talking about earlier, and something that transcends across CPG or Web3 or crypto or anything like that is, we product wise had something that a very saturated category had never seen before. We were the first to do a pretty big thing in our space. And we thought that that was, supposed to make the money for us, right? We thought that that would close the investors because we were innovating something crazy and nobody had ever done it before. And I know we hear the same story in Web3 and crypto spaces too. But what I realize is that when it comes to closing, whether it's rounds, investors, or anything else, and what Brian's talking about is you can focus on what makes you different all day, but they don't really care to buy into it until after you have shown that you have another element to you, whether that's connecting with them, like Brian said, with an experience, and you don't need the money aspect to get to that level with an individual that could be an investor or a buyer or a partner. I think it's just looking into them not as an investor, but as a person, finding out what makes them tick, and then figuring out how you guys can actually collaborate in a way that makes them feel excited about something. It could have nothing to do with your product.
You did even better than that at the start. The reason that I love you and I love what you've built, not even the product, right, is because you worked out the code is everything is about building cults. Like why did Bitcoin become like the largest, the most successful alt investment vehicle for 8 out of the last 11 years? Is it really because of the math algorithm and everything that's behind it? Probably not, right? Is it really because of the government? Definitely not, because the governments hate it, right? Large institutions, they hate it as well. It's because they understood one fundamental principle. The same principle, by the way, that GameStop, or I should say the Reddit investors, the GameStop were lucky enough to have tagged onto them, that they understood. You get a community, like a real community, a committed community, a fanatical community who are behind you, and watch the fuck out world, because they will come at you. And crypto have done that. That's why they survived through to BlackRock doing that ETF. They understood that if you build an incredible purpose and you tether that purpose to a beautiful transformative impact going through emotional resonance, oh my God, the world couldn't stop you. And so I saw that in you. You had a drink, which in some way, I mean, it's, by the way, you all have to see Havana, you got to see Vital Bev, you have to see, Brad will share the URL so you can look at it. I think he's got one of the most phenomenal designer in the world, but his entire team were built around design. And I think you can't build great purpose without incredible human-centric design, because it has to touch people on their heart, right? And so, and by the way, just look up drinkhavana.com, www.drinkhavana.com, and that will bring you straight to it. But like, you can't do it without that. But like, he understood that he needed to build a community first. And if you look at any great token in Web3, like the Shiba Inu coin, which I met the founder, they have like 5 million token holders. Their valuation is over $20 billion if we think of tokens as valuations, which, because it's money, a lot of people do. What do they have really? Do they have a technology? No. Do they have a product? No, they don't have any of that. They have a $20 billion valued community. And so, Brad, I saw you building community. Can you talk a little bit, before we go into the ethos of like what you built and what the product was, can you talk a little bit about how you worked out so early that the community piece was going to be so massive in your growth going forward?
I mean, yeah, you are harping on this well. It's the most important piece, no matter what industry or category that you're in. I mean, like I said, we founders typically get eaten up with what we've accomplished and innovating something that people haven't seen yet. But it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all if you don't have the right people supporting you or believing in it. And you could have, like Shiva, something that's really nothing, but it does 10 times better because the people believe in it. So seeing that, especially in our category where it's like you have a million different options, kind of like every other category, there's a lot of other players out there. You have to have the kind of your core community believing in it to the point where they're going to have loyalty to you and your brand. When other people see that, it's contagious. When people see that, like, no, I'm putting my money here because, Brad sat down with me and I believe in Brad. Like, the whole story about investors invest in founders, not companies. Like, you hear that all the time, but it's the most true thing there ever has been said. And it starts with genuine, real connections in a small core group, and then it just gets contagious and kind of goes out from there. And so we've seen that across our category and other brands, whether it's like you were saying, Liquid Death and June Shine. You don't start with a huge party and spending $1 million, because we don't all have $1 million right away. But it starts with a few genuine, real connections, understanding that, like, hey, people are people. We all have bad days. We have good days. Walking into a room and understanding that who's sitting across from you might be having a bad or good day. And so to connect with them on that, instead of connecting with them on, the business that you're starting, and then go from there. And I think, like, that's been pivotal for us in a lot of different ways, for sure.
It was huge. I'll even go as far as to say, remember when we used to do the Ryan Folan stuff, and Ryan used to say to us, people don't care who you are. People don't care what you do. People care what you do that impacts them.
Mm-hmm.
So even this whole piece about, like, we invest in founders, it goes a little bit deeper than that. If you think about that evening, me as an investor, right? If you'd have come to me and you'd be like, hey, Brian, man, I got this really cool drink and this is what it looks like, even with the beautiful design. And it is gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. Everything they do is gorgeous, by the way. The videos they do are gorgeous. The photos they do are gorgeous. The images, everything is gorgeous. It makes you feel all the way through. It's beautiful. But if they had just come to me with that, I wouldn't have invested. You know why? Because my logic would have said to me, CPG is more difficult to get follow-on investment in. It's more expensive to be able to build out. It'll break down founders quickly. The resilience requirements are much higher. You don't get to bootstrap your way through non-funding. It just doesn't exist. It's too hard. It's super expensive, like blah, 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 blah. There's like loads of really hard reasons why it wouldn't have happened. So even though I would have really liked him as a founder, even though I would have really liked the design, I probably would have said no, because it would be too early to do it. What I loved was not him. What I loved was what he did to make me realize I needed him. So by me seeing how he impacted those people, made me realize it was a no-brainer decision, maybe one of the quickest investment decisions I ever made. So whenever anybody out there is thinking, oh, I went to this investor and they said no, it's the nuanced part. It's not the I asked, you answered. That's not the way life works. It's about the serendipitous part that you can help create happen. That thing didn't happen on its own. He created those communities. He had a thesis, which is that if I can touch people in a community in a way that makes them feel like they're part of something bigger than just a drinks brand, that they're part of an experience, then we're going to change the world. And actually, in many ways, I even think of like what we were doing with GeoJam, who you know really well, from back in the early days when you met them. I'm even thinking we should reintroduce it back again and get you guys doing it together, because these experiences they're starting to do are off the friggin' chain.
Yeah.
And so, but just tell me, what made you realize at the start? I really want to focus this thing on community, because I think it was the biggest epic production you ever did, was building that community. And you talked about like creating soul cycles within the community, or anything else at all. Lovely. And yeah, sorry, please answer that. And then I got some more questions which are coming through from Nathan.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like you said, it boils down to why do people make their decisions, and it doesn't come down to always like what car goes the fastest or whatnot. It's about the feelings that they felt kind of surrounding a company, a certain venture or whatnot. And so For us, like seeing how that made products that were way not as good as ours do really, really well in the market, it made me realize like, okay, this is not about the product. It never really will be. There's a million examples of that. It's all about what Brian was saying, which is finding out, like what these people that are community builders, because like you can't just do it all on your own. You have to find the other community builders, invest in them, and then you can kind of do it all together, right? But finding what gets them excited and then showing them that your product is a part of that dream too, and now you have the same dream. So if you can make your dream transcend to other people's dreams, that's you can do anything really. I mean, there's no limit after that. So, and we've seen that with our rounds. Like this latest round has gone faster than any other round that we've done, and it's not because our numbers do look better now, and we just had our best month last month, and it's been all great. But the numbers aren't what made this round go faster. I've just personally gotten better at making those connections a little bit more genuine, more real, and having the right stuff flow. And like that's what it all kind of comes back to, honestly.
Honestly, if I don't want to put anybody off if you're in CPG right now today, but literally it is the hardest market, period. That I don't want to say it because it's like I don't want to make anybody feel bad, but I'm trying to contrast the magnitude of what Brad and his team have achieved here. For a company that's doing under 300,000 to 500,000 a month to actually raise money in this market, God bless them. Like it shows, it is one of the reasons I wanted him on this, because he is blitzing in a market where everybody is dying. And so you raised, and you don't have to mention names, but like I know you got a celebrity who came in. But again, this wasn't. I remember even when you and I were speaking like 12 months ago, you're like, okay, Brian, we're going to bring in this celebrity, and like that celebrity for multiple reasons didn't end up being the perfect fit, but you intentionally had a plan in place. And so surprise, surprise, you end up getting somebody else who ends up being related to somebody in a certain place, which ends up getting the round happening. Everything is lucky because you practice harder, right? It's because you planned for the luck to happen. So can you talk a little bit about the round and what kind of a position that puts you into and where that positions you for second half? Actually, you know what we should do? I got so carried away. Can you tell everybody what you do? Different products, what you have and the genesis of them. And then I want to talk about the round, and I want to talk about specific things that you did for the round very quickly, because I don't want to focus on the round because you're not successful because of the round. You're successful because of all of the growth around the round.
Right. Yeah. So our company, we make canned cocktails, kind of a hard seltzer hybrid between the two. So if you've seen like White Claw or High Noon, we're basically that, but we've innovated in a health conscious direction. So we're the first company to ever organically canned tequila. So like I said, we've done a lot of hard things in the space that none of these other bigger brands have done. We've done some real innovation on the scientific formulation side to actually genuinely make it a better product for you, and no other brand has really replicated that. So that's been awesome. But building the community around it of this kind of like, hey, we are, fitness people. We care about our bodies. We train in that direction. We always work with, influencers and stuff that kind of preach that. And we don't really want to drink, but when we do drink, this is it, right? So it's kind of like, like Liquid Death with the whole, water is not this super hardcore crazy thing, but then when you find one that it is, it's kind of like, oh shit, what is this, right? So we kind of did the same thing where it's like, oh, drinking is bad. It's always going to be bad. You shouldn't make it any better. Like just turn your head the other way. We're like, no, like there's millions of people out there that want to work out every single day of the week. And then on the weekend, they still go out, right? So let's grab onto them. Let's provide something that actually makes their life better, and then sell the dream of enjoying tonight and a better tomorrow, right? So so that's what we've kind of built. And then this round, yeah, CPG is crazy. I've had a lot of friends go out of business. I've had just about everybody do down rounds. We were able to go up in our valuation a little bit from our last price round, and it's been great. And like I said before, it's just been a matter of being persistent and being resilient and keep on trying with, the next person. Every company has somebody out there for them that will turn the tables for them. It's just a matter of time. And sometimes you'll get 100, 200 no's before you find that one person where everything changes. I mean, we've experienced this. I mean, we've been in this for, 3 rounds of funding across 4 years. And like, I've been in that seat so many times, and then the next month your life looks completely different. So just hanging in there until the right person comes to the table. And that's kind of what
You do it around the community. Like, people love you in the community. What you've built in the community is special. And
yeah,
you're right. Like, if we look at the successful brands, Liquid Death did it on the basis of just, I always felt, most people don't quite read it properly because they hear it by third party. But I was here when Mike and all the guys started off, and Peter started off Liquid Death, so I watched them, and I watched as they promoted it to an older group of people who were just bored in boardrooms, right? They just gave it to a bunch of 50-year-olds, and they're like, look, your life sucks. Let's be fair. It's been a long time since AC/DC, Guns N' Roses and stuff. Today you're married, like, with a couple of whatevers and dogs and all kinds of crap, which have just complicated your life, and you're going to die soon, right? But how about we put a can of Liquid Death on the table instead of some plastic bottled water, and at least this board meeting won't feel like that. That's what they did. And like, everybody's like, that's cool. And so they got those people. And it so turned out that those people were all investors as well. And so they reacted the same way that they did with Bird when they did Bird. And I thought with you, your stuff is all kosher, right?
yeah, kosher, organic, the whole gamut.
Kosher, organic. So I remember one of the first investors, really good friend of mine, Eli, who came in and he's like, wow, I can't believe that they've done this. I love it. I'll invest.
Yeah.
And you didn't do it for the investor community, but the investor community, especially the Jewish investor community, really liked that you had put that in place. And so it was a small step, or maybe a large step, but that was a very, very, very important step that actually ended up building even a different community that you expected to have built with there as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so that stuff is really powerful. And you just did it on the basis of, you know what, we're young, we're fit, we're healthy. We'll decide how we want to have fun, and we'll do it on our terms, and watch how the thing turned out. And I'm telling you, that party that happened in our place, I've had parties where people have come in and, maybe schools or colleges or whatever. And honestly, they were like disgusting little animals. And I made promises never to let them back in again. And I saw the people who came out of your place, and it was like a revolution. It was like a group of people who were saying, we want to enjoy life, and we want to enjoy the world, and we want to respect ourselves, and we want to respect the people around us. And we believe that you can really have fun without other people having to get hurt on anything. Like, it was beautiful. It was like every single moment from the first moment I saw you reinforced for me that, like, you had worked it out. You'd worked out how to build a community that totally embodied everything that you were doing. And we can talk about loads of other stuff today. We can talk about, like, how you reached out to investors, how you got them in, how you pitched them, how you closed them. But for me, that community that you built and that you continue to build through, I do want to talk about, like, future festivals and stuff that you want to create yourself, and how, now that you have your lovable product, how that's going to turn into a Horizon 3 product in the future. But for me, that community is literally the only thing we need to talk about today, because you nailed it. You nailed it with investors, with me. You nailed it with follow-on investors. Chad, who came in, Chad, who was a great buddy of mine for years and years and years. His group threw in, what, 500,000 or so,
Yeah.
250, 500,000, right? And so why? Because he saw the same thing. He's like, these people understand fun on their terms, which involves being respectful to everybody. Like, it's just, I don't even know how to describe it. You almost have to see it to know what it is. Am I like, I don't know. Am I seeing this in, like, too beautiful a way? Is this how you envisioned it before? Did it evolve like this? Is this how you're going in the future? Like, help me out.
Yeah, no, you're not at all. I think like I'll give an example. Just yesterday, so we launched Tennessee. We're really big in California now on the grocery store side, and we recently launched Tennessee. And I was at the Soho House here at the pool, and so they sell us at the Soho House here and in California. And if you're familiar with Soho, you get lots of opportunities, great networking place to be at, especially poolside, that kind of stuff. And, when we first brought the product out, it was like talking to one person and the next person. And then, like, I looked my head up after about like an hour of being there, just talking to these people. Wasn't even really, talking about the brand or anything. I was just kind of going around meeting people. And after about an hour of being there, you couldn't see like a single cabana or table side that didn't have an Avana bucket, like a branded Avana bucket with the Soho House logo there, like at their table. And so just seeing that, yeah. And yesterday we had like DeAndre Hopkins and a bunch of other celebrities just drinking it. And I was just kind of just chatting with them, just like, do you like that flavor? And they're like, yeah, shit, that's mine. And I think it just, the thing is like it all the branding and everything aligns, right? So like,
but by the way, this goes back to the same point. Like when you have this, when you intentionally put that brand in Soho House, like I'm sorry, 80% of the investors in California are a member of Soho House, maybe not 80, but like 80% of the technology investors, let me rephrase it, are either a member or have gone there in the last 12 months, like period. That's what happens, right? They're either having a meeting there, they're having a dinner there, or they're just going there to look at some other beautiful people, okay? And so if you have your drink there, if you're a startup and you're trying to build investor relations, what's the better thing to do? Is it to like outreach to 1,000 investors and say, I have this beautiful drink, it's really awesome, you should meet with me? Or is it to actually have the drink at Soho House, have your investor meeting at Soho House and have them serve your drinks while you're talking to them about what you do? It's just a no-brainer. Or seeing an investor over at the other side of Soho House and sending over your drinks so that they can drink it, so you can say it's our drink sent over by the Havana team on them.
Yeah, this round we're at 2.5 mil of a 3.5 raise, and I've closed 5 checks at Soho House here in Nashville.
You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. Come on. It's so easy. It's so easy. It's like ducks in a barrel fishing. Like, it's so easy.
Right.
Because we want to believe. We all want to believe. It's just that you're actually the entrepreneur with the most respect for investors' feelings, because no investor wants to lose money. It's absolutely terrifying. I get a ton of people who say, hey, I'm real sorry, Brian, 50K is gone. And I'm like, well, dude, that's like that's like my investors' money. Like, I actually feel a lot worse about it than you do, because that's someone in the world who worked their ass off, probably wasn't a trust fund kid. It was probably like some poor kid from Pittsburgh, like my LP is, who worked his ass off for like 50, 60 years to earn as much money as he could, so he could then put that money in and trust it in me. It's like, whoa, how heavy is that burden to carry to bring it through? And so all we want is for someone to just really try and show us that they're going to do everything they can to protect that. And so by you doing that, by you opening up that experience for us, like, we gush, all of us, because we want to be a part of something bigger than ourselves. So you're a freaking legend. That's it, period. What would you share with people here just on what, first of all, I want to ask you what you would share that can be helpful for anyone in here to build those communities. I know you use some great tools. You use community, because I think halfway before I asked you about like the investment, I think I went over to you and I'm like, dude, how'd you get so many people? This is fucking crazy. Like, all these beautiful people started arriving. I was like, are you kidding? I actually started texting people. I'm like, I don't know what's going on in Expert Dojo right now. It feels wrong. Okay. Normally there's just me. So there's like a bar where we keep the level, right? And it's just suddenly gone crazy. And so I said to you, how'd you get so many people? And you're like, oh, I used the community app, which is Ashton Kutcher, I think, invested in that app, and a bunch of other people. But can you share with people just specific tools and methodologies that helped you build up such a monster communities, and maybe some of the specific hacks that you did to get into places like Soho House?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, lots of little tools like community. I mean, I think and with those little tools, I mean, there's a million of them out there. So finding the ones that feel more real or genuine. So like, for example, community, the reason why we use that versus like Klaviyo or a different, SMS marketing, thing or email marketing option is because the way that it interacts with the user makes it feel like it's a real person texting you. There's no like weird opt-in, opt-out kind of stuff. Like, it's just a number that's texting you. When they get a text from that number when I send it out, like, it doesn't come from like one of those spam numbers. It's a real LA based number. And so like when I send it out to LA people, they're like, oh shoot, this brand is me. Like, this is me. It's from where I live, all this kind of stuff. And so I
How
think
many people do you have on your list right now for the texting,
uh,
including everyone?
we haven't even pushed on this in a while, but we probably have about like 2,000 people on there. And these are all like people that live in our target demographic, in our target markets, and everything. So
And also, I know like it's a highly targeted demographic of extremely successful young people that want to have fun. And I know that because he never invites me. I'm never on that list. So yeah, no, it's really good. See, you need to know your ICP and keep the people away that you want to keep away. Damn
right,
you.
yeah. And I mean, like, I think like
It's
also going
brutal. I'm not going to say it's not brutal, but you know.
right. I think, I mean, with the whole drinking thing, like we're selling alcohol, and it's like most alcohol brands go to the party influencers, right? So they're finding people that party all the time, and like, hey, here's our drink. We know you party, like you're gonna like this. We're like, no, fuck that. Let's go to the people that are in the gym more than they are at parties, because at the end of the day, like, who are you really looking up to? Are you looking up to the slob that's still drunk from the day before, looks like crap? Like, no, like that's not who you're really looking up to. Like, you're not. You're trying to be like the person that has their life together but still has fun, still has a great time, and looks great. And like that's kind of honestly, that's what we did, and it kind of just aligned with our branding. Like this aligns with what the dream is, which is to feel good, look good, and be good, and have a good life with everybody else, right? So that was kind of like some of our building blocks, and we stuck to those. And when it comes to like getting those communities built and the tools and whatnot, the community app was great. And like I said, I think regardless of what the tool is, just finding anything that feels more genuine, because our thing has always been strategic but genuine. So strategic, like Soho House is very strategic. But when I go into Soho House, I'm not running around like a chicken with my head cut off trying to find the richest guy in there. Like I don't give a shit. Like I'm talking to the person in front of me because I genuinely want to know about the person in front of me. And if I find out he's not an investor, I don't cut the conversation off and walk away. Like, no, I'm already put myself in a very strategic place. I don't need to be desperate anymore, right? So if you're strategic, then you can just be genuine and be yourself. And that's been really pivotal for us, is like getting in the right door. And when you're in there, like, don't walk away from who you are and treating people the right way, just because you gotta, make deadlines and whatnot. So I think that's been a big piece of the puzzle too.
Amazing. And then I want to talk about Horizon 3 for you. I want to talk about where you go next. So, extremely successful brand. How many flavors do we have now? We have the tequila, we have the vodka. We have 3, right?
Yeah, we've got 4. So they're all tequila based, but we've got our 4 different flavors: pina colada, wild berry, the paloma, and the margarita. So honestly, Horizon 3 is out there. I think where we're at, like, kind of right now, is just the expansion of, which is not necessarily another horizon, but we just launched another state, Florida, which has been huge. I mean, I think this time last year, we were like just dying to break, 10K in MRR. Like we were trying to like 10K, 20K. This past month, we just did 100 and broke 100. And so that was like a huge milestone for us. So I think like building out the same cult following we have in California, replicating it in these other states and other markets, like we are right now in Nashville, Tennessee, and we'll be in Florida. Like that's kind of our immediate horizon. After that, like looking at big picture, it's just like kind of, I guess, cultivating and being that.
I want to hold the Horizon 3 thing for 1 minute.
Yeah.
I want to ask you one question, and then I want to share the epic insight that I had from last week. And then I want to re-ask you the Horizon 3 question, because I see a monster Horizon 3 for you. Monster. So my question is this: what was your total revenue last year, 2023?
In 2023, we were, I think, 350K is right around where we ended up landing. So
and for 2024,
nothing too sexy. Yeah, nothing too sexy. Right now, yeah, in 2024, we've already passed that now, and we're just now entering like our kind of our market is very much dependent on summertime. So we do, 3 times as much as we do in the summer months. And in our first summer month, which was May, like I said, we broke 100K just in May.
So give me a number. 2024.
So 2024 year to date, we're at 375.
Full year, end of the year.
End of the year. Oh, where we're gonna be? We're gonna break 1 million this year. Is what we're doing. So
I'm going to bet you're going to break 1.5.
Let's do it.
I'm going to fucking bet you're going to break 1.5, because now you're in a stride. I'm going to bet you're going to do 1.5, and then 2025.
2025, yeah, we're rolling out a full nationwide launch of Kroger. We have a couple more states opening, so we want to break 5. We want to go from 1 to 5. Big jump, but like I said, with our category and our market, like that's kind of what we have lined up.
And so, ladies and gents, for anybody listening, that is unicorn growth. And in the CPG space, with a lot of money in the bank, a great brand that everybody loves, a huge community behind them, who would bet against them doing that? Like, they're in a phenomenal place right now. And it's only going to expand out. So, now that everybody's seen that, you see the monumental growth from year to year in the most difficult time ever for consumer packaged goods. You see what they've grown to last year to this year, and you see what they're going to grow to next year. We all know they're going to go for a Series A in 2025, whether it's Q2 or Q3. You know they're going to go for a Series A at that year. So I want to share my epic insight, and then I want to ask Brad again what his Horizon 3 is. And by the way, the fact the Horizon 3 comes within a few years of starting a brand. It's never at the beginning. It's always as the brand develops, you see where it goes to. Like Red Bull, never would have imagined Red Bull today at the very beginning of Red Bull, right? It developed over a period of time, but then it turned into something entirely different, category changing, that nobody was able to replicate after that period, right? While if it had just been the product, everybody would have been able to replicate it. So here's my epic insight that came through from when I was there. I mentioned to everyone earlier, you got to go through domain awareness to domain expertise to domain dominance. The way that you do that is by making sure everybody hears you. Brad's explained exactly how you do that. And then you make sure that you learn from that to become the expert in your space. And then you go on from there to become the dominant member in your space, right? That jump is the more difficult jump. The only way you do it is by creating epic productions, right? Your epic production could be doing a book. Your epic production could be an event. Your epic production could be anything at all, but it has to be an epic production that you're creating. Okay. So last week when I was over at Consensus, I was in the middle of the place. I arranged the huge event that we did. I explained to everybody around how that worked. I explained to you how it tied into this monster nightclub that we went to afterwards, the comedians that we did beforehand, and how it put us in a position of being everybody wanting to do with us. But what I didn't mention was DNA, who were one of the first people in the Web3 space, Brock Pierce, his partner Scott, and a bunch of other people from DNA. They came in heavy. Those were the guys, by the way, along with William Quigley, who did Wax and Tether. So we're talking monster people in that space. They went away pretty much for 8-10 years, but then they came back. What did they do? They created their own Soho House for the week of Consensus. That Soho House provided free meals, free drinks, and free T-shirts, right, in a beautiful venue, which was right beside the actual conference hall itself. I had a ticket for the conference. I didn't go there one single time. Not one single time, because there was no reason for me to leave the DNA house. Everybody who was important came to the DNA house. So what they did was they came back so heavy, and they had T-shirts printed up, which I should have brought them. But the T-shirt said, "Legends never die." And on the outside of their building, there was a huge sign that said, "Legends never die." Inside their place, they rented it out to enough people that they probably covered the majority of the cost, if not all the cost, not unsimilar to what we're doing here. What I'm saying is, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of VCs in Web3. Who are they? Nobody friggin' knows. But everybody knows who DNA are, because they're here to play the game properly. And so their Horizon 3 is to be the most significant player in the entire Web3 space, to be the ones who created the category and helped the category mature into what it is to become in the future. Now, whether they achieve that or don't achieve that is to be seen. But if they hadn't done what they did, they would never have been able to start to play the game. And so with Havana, with what you're building there, I see that you've built out this incredible community. I see that you've built these beautiful products. They taste amazing, like amazing. I have them here at the dojo. We hand them out. Now that I know they're at Soho House, they are the only thing I will drink whenever I go there. I'm not a member, obviously, because they wouldn't have me as a member, but I get invited by other people who are members. So when I go there, I shall only be drinking your beverages. But like, what does 5 years, 10 years in the future, what does the brand represent? If you see what DNA are building in their category, what does that do for you?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's so where our category is, there's nobody really innovating in the direction that we are. And every CPG category has had this health conscious correction. So for us to be leading that curve is like genuinely at our core what our mission is. And so as a product, what that means is like, how do we formulate? How do we actually do the testing to make sure this is actually performing better in your body and being more easily broken down by your body? But then how do you communicate that? Because if you just put that on a piece of paper and spray it out to people, they're going to be like, okay, cool product, but like, I don't like, it's not a sexy way to do it, right? Like you got to find a way to communicate how your product is different and make it genuinely align with everything. So for us, going into like years from now, and what we're cultivating now on a much smaller level, and like what we did at Brian's place, when we do at Soho House here, and in different events, kind of in California and across, is creating experiences that align with our product. So those experiences, like Brian was saying, like we're not the brand that's going to get you blackout drunk. We're not the brand that's going to, align with different things you typically see in drinking. We're the brand that aligns with being able to kind of do a little bit of both, have a great time, but then also be able to wake up the next day and not feel like complete crap and get done what you need to get done. And so the way that we cultivate that, and it will be in the future, is by doing kind of our own events rather than buying into, an event that's already been thrown by somebody that doesn't quite get the dream or the picture, is by doing stuff like, like renting out Brian's place and doing it on our own versus just slapping our name on another concert that's already been thrown or whatever. Cause then you're just kind of right on the coattails of another brand. And there's no way that brand is going to be perfectly the dream that you have. So putting the extra work of like actually creating those experiences is kind of a big part of how do we convey our difference, but on a grander scheme and everything. So
really redefining the relationship between fun and beverage and alcoholic beverage consumption.
Yeah.
And that's an absolute category on its own. Like there's nobody who owns that category today.
Right. It's making mindful and making cool is the thing.
Yeah, it is a huge thing. And by the way, the social impact on the world is monumental.
Mm-hmm.
And it moves away. So that in itself is absolutely huge. And don't worry, if anybody saw Gregory Carroll there, that was from before. So ignore that. And this is Brad from Havana. And Jack just missed the name. So Havana is the brand. You can see it. Buy it, by the way. Support this brand. This is the only brand you should be supporting in alcoholic beverage consumption. It's delicious. It's nice. And you feel 30 years younger. And now I feel that because I brought Brad on the show and because I've invested him, he's going to re-put me back onto his texting list, so that I can go to some of the parties again. It's been a cruel couple of years. Just saying.
Well,
it's okay. It's okay.
We'll be back out here. Hey, we got a run club we're doing on Wednesday. So if you want to run with us, Brian, we're all.
Yeah, I'm in. In Santa Monica.
No, this one's in Newport Beach. So we will do one up there, though. I'll
run that far. But when you do one in Santa Monica, I am there with you. And the next time you want to do one at the dojo, an event at the dojo, it is, of course, yours for the taking whenever you need it. Okay?
Beautiful.
Look, you're a legend. You're here because you've achieved all of these things on your own. I can hardly wait till we start doing the Havana festivals, which are going to bring in music bands and music, and they're going to have all kinds of great experiences around them and amazing people enjoying life in the way that life was supposed to be enjoyed. Like it's so exciting to be on this journey with you. And I'm so proud of everything that you've accomplished. Jack has asked, is that the brand who wants to be known for the most active investor on Web3? That is called DNA. DNA or a Web3 investor. You know what? Sometime in the future, who knows? We'll end up putting Ivana on the blockchain and be able to measure like how many people have drunk it and look at the entire, actually, but on a serious level, we could put the supply chain on there so we can show how good the ingredients are compared to the ingredients and where they come from and where they're based. But just on a general level, you're a legend. You're building out like such an amazing infrastructure for everything that you've done. You're an absolute credit to entrepreneurs. I'm proud to be an investor, and I'm looking forward to like supporting you and helping you all the way. So thank you, my friend. And I will answer one question from Cisco, and then we will call it a wrap, right? And that question Cisco asked earlier on was, why don't accelerators work? Which is kind of bizarre with me being an accelerator saying they don't work, right? Because accelerators are based on the principle that startups need desperately to have access to investors. That's not true. Investors desperately need access to great startups who have worked out the relationship with their community and their customers. The other way of thinking about it is a mind fuck that investors have put on startups since the very beginning to keep them away from being successful in companies on their own. Accelerators are also there to provide mentors. What is the problem with that? Mentors do not have enough information about the founders to give them good information. So they give information that is relative to their experience. It doesn't make them bad people. It just makes them bad people to give advice to that particular founder. What accelerators need to turn into is growth hacking studios that really help founders, that really get behind them. Are we there? No, we're trying desperately to get there because it's the only thing that Brad wants. If Brad has someone who just stands by his side and helps him grow to a level where investors find out how awesome he is, that's what he wants. He doesn't want to spend all of his days like sucking up to a bunch of investors asking if they can provide him with funding. Fuck that. He wants to go out and build an amazing company that changes the world with as few distractions as possible. That's why accelerators don't work. Anyway.
And we wouldn't have been anywhere without the Expert Dojo and Brian, specifically Brian. So
I think you would have done just fine. But listen, you're a legend. You're a legend. You hear me? And we're going to do loads more going forward. Thank you, everybody. That's it. Thank you, Brad. More to come.